Have you ever found yourself just wrestling with a product manual? Like it spoke a completely different language.
Oh, definitely. Happens all the time.
Or, you're halfway through assembling some new furniture and suddenly you realize the instructions are, well, let's just say creatively
And
ambiguous.
you're left with those mystery parts. Yeah.
Exactly, with extra parts and that growing sense of dread. But more seriously, what about when a safety warning, something meant to protect you, seems intentionally vague? It leaves you scratching your head instead of actually feeling informed.
Yeah, and that's getting serious.
It really is. And this isn't just about, poor writing. It's about the profound impact when information, the stuff that's supposed to guide us, protect us, inform us, isn't just poorly put together, but maybe even deliberately misleading.
It's a huge issue, isn't it? Especially now. In our world, information is, well, it's power. And how it's communicated, or maybe deliberately miscommunicated, has real, tangible consequences, often pretty significant ones. The choices people make when creating and transferring information, they're almost never neutral. They ripple outwards, affecting not just the person right in front of the document, but maybe whole communities, or even, the planet.
Exactly, that profound ripple effect. That's precisely what we're diving into today on the deep dive.
Okay.
We're really digging into the crucial, often kind of overlooked world of technical communication ethics.
So important.
It is. We're going to explore the critical choices involved in how we craft information, how we present it,
Yep.
deliver it,
Okay.
and why those choices carry very real, very human consequences. So this isn't just like abstract philosophy class stuff,
No, not at all. It's practical.
right? It's about practical, everyday decisions that shape understanding, safety, and ultimately trust.
And our mission today is pretty straightforward, but I think incredibly vital. It's to equip you, our listener, with the principles and the practical tools you need,
Hmm.
not just to identify information that's distorted or misleading, but also to understand how to proactively avoid it, prevent it in your own communication. Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's about ensuring that you act with integrity, respecting yourself, respecting the work others do, and crucially, respecting the audience that relies on your communication.
We'll be drawing heavily from some really insightful material for this deep dive, particularly practical models for technical communication.
Oh, great resource.
It really is. It lays out the foundational principles of ethical technical communication and highlights a lot of the common pitfalls. It just hammers home why ethics isn't some, academic concepts stuck in a lecture hall.
Mm-hmm.
It's a practical, unavoidable necessity in pretty much every piece of communication we create.
Absolutely. It's about making conscious, informed decisions, especially in a field where clarity and accuracy can, well, literally impact safety, understanding, even people's livelihoods.
Yeah, think about that.
Just think about it.
Huh.
A poorly worded instruction, a graph that misleads, maybe a hidden disclaimer, that could be the difference between someone successfully using, say, a medical device and experiencing a critical failure. The stakes are incredibly high.
High stakes indeed. So, okay, let's unpack this then. Let's
Yeah.
start right at the foundation.
Yeah.
Why does ethics matter so profoundly in communication?
Mm.
When we talk about ethics here, what are we really defining? Beyond just, doing the right thing.
Well, at its core, ethics is basically a system of principles or morals. It's what guides the actions of an individual or a group.
Okay.
It's the framework we use to figure out what's good, what's bad, right, wrong. But here's where it gets really interesting, especially in the practical world of technical communication. Ethical questions. They aren't always a simple yes or no. They very often involve complex factors, things like strict deadlines, really tight budgets, competitive pressures,
Right.
or even like social pressures to present things in a particular way, maybe a more favorable light.
So it's rarely as simple as, should I tell the truth?
Yeah.
It's much more often like, okay, how much truth in what detail and in what context,
Right.
given all these real world constraints.
Oh.
And that brings up that critical distinction our source highlights. That tension between what should be done, ethically speaking, versus what maybe needs to be done within those limitations.
Right.
Could you give us an example of that tension playing out?
Sure, certainly. Imagine a scenario. You're working within an engineering team.
Okay.
You, as the technical communicator, you might discover a potential safety issue in a new product. Ethically, you should report this immediately,
Right.
even if it means delaying the launch, incurring significant costs.
That's the should.
That's the should. It aligns with your duty to public safety, to the user's well-being. However,
Mm.
you might also feel immense pressure, maybe even feel a need to deliver a progress report that, makes your team look good to the boss.
Keep things smooth.
Right. Keeps the project within budget, meets that aggressive deadline. This isn't hypothetical stuff. These are the kinds of deep dilemmas technical communicators face almost daily, where the ethical choice really requires critical thinking that goes way beyond just the immediate pressures or, frankly, self-preservation. It demands you weigh these competing obligations carefully.
That's a perfect illustration of the real-world pressure. It really hammers home the idea that your personal ethical orientation is key here. Your ethics, ultimately, they relate to the choices you make and how those choices affect others.
Definitely.
This deep dive, in a way, is maybe designed to help you explore and define your ethical stance.
Yeah.
What lines you're unwilling to cross, what values you prioritize when you're faced with these dilemmas.
Indeed. And to truly understand that stance and figure out how to apply it responsibly, we need to broaden our perspective. We can't just think about ourselves.
Right.
Our source actually presents a powerful visual of a Venn diagram to help us understand the broader impact of our decisions. It illustrates 3 overlapping categories that really influence responsible decision-making: the self, others, and the world.
Okay, let's unpack this diagram. It sounds incredibly insightful for understanding the full scope of our ethical responsibilities. So first, there's the self.
Yeah.
What does that encompass in this ethical framework?
Okay, the self category, it basically represents your core values, your personal beliefs, and how you see yourself aligning with society's broader moral fabric.
Okay, your internal compass.
Exactly. It's about introspection. What are your non-negotiables? What compromises are you absolutely unwilling to make, even under immense pressure? Your worldview, shaped by your upbringing, education, life experiences that forms the bedrock of your professional ethics. Sometimes this aligns perfectly with what's expected externally. Other times, well, it doesn't. And that forces you to question where your personal code of ethics ends and maybe a professional one begins. It's really about knowing your own moral compass and, crucially, listening to it.
And then, expanding out from the self, we have others. This feels like where the rubber really meets the road for communicators, because our work is fundamentally about interacting with and informing people, right?
Absolutely. Others refers to everyone who will be affected by your decision. And that's a wide net. It includes your direct clients, sure, but also the end users of your documents, your colleagues, your employer, even competitors, potentially.
Wow.
You have to meticulously consider the short-term and the mid-term consequences of your actions, or, just as important, your inactions.
Good point.
A technical document, really at its heart, is fundamentally about human beings. Your choices in conveying information have direct, tangible consequences for those who rely on it, for understanding, for safety, for making decisions.
So if I'm writing, say, a complex software manual, it's not just about me getting the job done, checking it off my list.
Right.
It's about that person struggling at 2 a.m., trying to use the product safely and effectively. It's about them, not just the task itself. That makes perfect sense. And the third overlapping category is situation. How does that play into ethical decision-making?
The situation asks some specific questions. What exactly are you being asked to do right now? Who specifically is involved in this particular task or project? What specific needs are you trying to meet within this unique context?
So context matters. A
A
lot.
lot. Hugely. Professional ethics, in large part, depend heavily on the culture of your workplace and the immediate context of the task. What might be permissible, maybe even encouraged in one private sector job, perhaps in a less regulated industry, could lead to immediate dismissal in a government workplace or a highly regulated field like pharmaceuticals.
Oh.
The immediate context of your specific task heavily shapes the ethical considerations and the acceptable boundaries of action.
Yeah.
You can't just apply a blanket rule.
And finally, the largest circle, the one that encompasses everything, world.
Mhm.
This really broadens the scope of responsibility, doesn't it? Beyond just immediate human interaction.
It does, profoundly so. Ethical decisions involve considering not just the immediate impact on people and projects, but also the world at large. That includes the natural environment, future generations. Technical communicators, particularly those working in fields like science and technology, must consider both human and non-human factors in their ethical decisions.
Like what?
Well, it would be highly irresponsible, frankly unethical, to ignore scholarly scholarly research about pressing environmental issues affecting humanity, things like overpopulation, waste disposal, climate change, when your communication relates directly to these areas.
Right. You can't just ignore the science.
Exactly. Your choice doesn't just impact a user in the short term. It could have long-term systemic effects on the environment, on global well-being. This requires an even greater awareness of how your choices impact other people and the planet on a global, generational scale.
That truly emphasizes that technical communication isn't just about, technical accuracy in a vacuum. It's about a deep ethical awareness of its societal and environmental footprint. It's way more than just getting the words right.
Precisely. And unfortunately, sometimes people make unethical choices, often driven by intense pressure, maybe a lack of clear ethical guidance, or sometimes just a misguided sense of what's acceptable.
Yeah.
Our source provides a compelling real-world example of the perils of those choices. It's a case study involving a recent graduate named Kamal. It's a really stark illustration of how easily someone can stumble.
Yes, the Kamal case study. It's a stark reminder of that slippery slope.
Yeah.
So, okay, Kamal is a recent graduate, eager to prove himself, working in a student advising department.
Right.
He's tasked with creating a document for students about career planning and job market information. Pretty critical stuff for their futures. What happens next, and what's his likely thought process?
Well, while he's researching online, Kamal stumbles upon an external report. It contains exactly the information he needs. It's comprehensive, seems well-researched, a perfect fit.
Convenient.
Too convenient, maybe. Instead of properly citing it or, even better, synthesizing its findings with his own analysis and perspective, he simply copies the report wholesale, presents it as his own original work, and submits it to his boss for approval. His likely thought process was probably pretty simple. Hey, this is a quick shortcut, saves me hours, and I'll look efficient. He may have felt immense pressure to deliver quickly and impress his new employer.
And that's where the ethical red flags immediately start waving like mad.
Right.
It's easy to judge from the outside, but what pressures might Kamal have been under that led him to make that choice? And what should he have done instead?
You're right, we often forget the human element, the pressure cooker environment. He was likely facing significant pressure, maybe social pressure to perform well in a new role, stress from a demanding job, definitely tight time constraints to deliver the document quickly. He might have felt overwhelmed thinking this was the only way to meet expectations. But, and this is key, our source explicitly points out that instead of plagiarizing, Kamal should have exercised professionalism and integrity by doing the extra work. Properly researching, synthesizing the information in his own words, adding his own value, and crucially accurately citing the original source.
Right. The ethical path.
Exactly. This would have fulfilled his boss's expectations ethically and built genuine trust. He had a very clear choice between expediency and integrity. He chose expediency.
So what were the consequences, both direct and indirect?
Sure.
Because like you said, it's not just about getting caught, is it? It's about that deeper erosion of trust.
You're absolutely correct. Copying information without acknowledgement, like Kamal did, is unequivocally intellectual theft. Plagiarism.
Plain and simple.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
It's not a harmless shortcut. It carries severe risks. Beyond the immediate professional fallout, think about the ripple effect again. What if the original information Kamal copied was inaccurate or outdated or biased? It could lead the end users, the students in this case, to make significant missteps in their career planning based on flawed data. Their futures could be negatively impacted because of his shortcut. And, as the source notes, when Kamal's plagiarism was discovered, he ultimately lost the trust of his boss and, potentially, his job. Even if he hadn't been called, the act itself damages one's professional reputation. It erodes the fundamental trust that underpins any professional relationship. And trust, once it's broken, it's incredibly difficult, sometimes impossible, to fully regain.
That's a powerful lesson.
Yeah.
It really underscores that unethical choices, whether they're immediately caught or not, create deep cracks in trust and reputation, almost impossible to fully repair. Which brings us perfectly to the next section. How these ethical considerations play out in actual professional practice, guiding every decision we make.
Exactly. When we talk about ethics at work, especially in technical communication, it's not just about your personal morality anymore. It's really an extension of your employer's legal and moral obligations. As a technical communicator, you create content as an integral part of your organization's operations. That means you are inherently bound to adhere to their standards, their codes of conduct, their legal responsibilities. Whether those are explicitly stated in a company policy or implicitly understood through industry best practices, your work reflects directly on the organization.
So my ethical behavior as an individual directly ties into the broader legal and operational framework of my company.
Hmm.
And the ultimate goal of that ethical behavior, beyond just compliance or avoiding legal trouble, is to ensure what for the user?
It ensures that any reasonable audience can make a truly informed decision based on the information you provide. This is paramount because ethical behavior and communication is fundamentally about preventing harm,
Harm.
like physical harm.
Or,
It could be physical, financial, or reputational harm. Many ethical dilemmas, in fact, involve carefully weighing the potential consequences of your communication for various interconnected groups, the users of the product, the company itself, maybe even the broader society. It's about foreseeing potential pitfalls and acting responsibly to mitigate them.
this brings us to a really interesting and, I imagine, often challenging aspect,
Yeah.
that inherent tension technical communicators face.
Hmm.
Pleasing an employer or client versus truly serving the user's best interests. It must be incredibly tempting sometimes to just take the easiest solution, right? Make the work look simple, keep the client happy, even if it means compromising clarity for the user.
Oh, it's a very common and very difficult conflict. A technical communicator might feel direct pressure from a client to present information in a certain light, maybe emphasize benefits, downplay risks, which can directly contradict the user's need for complete, unbiased, transparent information. Our source uses a particularly compelling example, creating a brochure for a new prescription drug. This scenario really highlights the high stakes involved.
Oh, that's a classic high-stakes scenario for sure. Pharmaceutical companies, understandably, they want to highlight the groundbreaking benefits of their new drug. And maybe, minimize the potential drawbacks or side effects.
Of course.
But the communicator's responsibility to the patient, that's where the ethical dilemma really intensifies. It's not just marketing anymore. It's public health.
Precisely. While the pharmaceutical company aims to sell their product and needs to present it favorably, the technical communicator has a profound responsibility to the patient, the ultimate end user, to provide a realistic, balanced portrayal of the drug's interactions, potential side effects, all associated risks. Your decision in this specific situation, it can literally be a matter of life and death.
Wow.
It's not just about sales figures or ticking boxes on legal disclaimers. It's about the well-being and safety of the human being who will be taking that medication. You are the bridge between complex medical data and a patient's informed decision.
That's incredibly weighty.
Oh.
And, okay, well, the communicator isn't the only responsible party. You've got doctors prescribing, the FDA regulating, the company's legal team reviewing.
Yes, it's a system.
But their specific role in conveying critical information directly to the patient demands absolute professional integrity. They're right there on the front line of information delivery.
Absolutely. It highlights the unique ethical burden technical communicators carry. And to help navigate these often complex situations, professional organizations provide invaluable guidance.
Haiku.
The Society for Technical Communication, STC, is a leading professional organization. They've meticulously identified 6 core ethical principles.
6 principles, okay.
These principles serve as a robust, actionable framework for professional activity and accountability in the field. They guide decisions when the waters get murky, when those pressures start mounting.
Okay, let's deep dive into each of these 6 STC principles, because they really sound like the guiding stars for ethical technical communication. They give us a compass when we're feeling adrift in that sea of competing pressures. The first is legality.
Legality. At its core, it means rigorously following all applicable laws, regulations, and contractual terms governing your work.
So just follow the law.
Well, yes, but practically that translates to ensuring your work is original, respecting intellectual property laws like copyright and trademarks. It means understanding exactly what you can and cannot use without explicit permission.
Okay.
It means adhering to data privacy regulations like GDPR or HIPAA, depending on the context, and meeting all other legal requirements pertinent to your content and its distribution. It's about compliance, yes, but also about protecting your organization from serious legal repercussions.
Got it. Next up, honesty. This one seems straightforward, don't lie, but I imagine it has far more nuances than just that simple statement. It's not just about what you say, but maybe what you don't say and how you say it.
It absolutely does. Honesty means being truthful, accurate, and actively avoiding any form of ambiguity or misrepresentation in your communication
Okay.
and practice. This means getting explicit permission before using others' work, providing proper attribution when you do, ensuring your data isn't cherry-picked or presented out of context,
Hmm.
and even using your clients' or employers' time and resources appropriately and ethically. It reinforces that honesty applies not just to the content you produce, the words, the data, but to your entire professional conduct as well, being transparent in all aspects.
And then confidentiality. This feels especially critical in many professional fields where sensitive data is just part of the daily reality.
Oh, absolutely. Confidentiality dictates that you must obtain explicit consent before sharing any sensitive or private information.
Explicit consent.
Yes. Practically, this involves meticulously securing releases from clients and employers and rigorously protecting private data, especially in fields like medicine or finance, where regulations like IPAY in the US are critical and the legal penalties for breaches are severe. Your word, your discretion, your ability to safeguard proprietary or personal information, they're paramount. It's about building and maintaining trust through responsible information handling.
The fourth principle is quality. This speaks directly to the craftsmanship of the work itself, doesn't it? It's not just about getting it done, but getting it done well.
Indeed. Quality means consistently doing your absolute best work. It means negotiating fairly for your services and rigorously meeting deadlines.
So professionalism in execution.
Exactly. It's about demonstrating professional craftsmanship, meticulous attention to detail, and an unwavering commitment to excellence in every piece of communication you produce. This includes accuracy, clarity, usability, completeness.
Right.
It's about not cutting corners on the output itself, because low quality can directly lead to misunderstanding, frustration, or even harm for the user. It means taking pride in your work as a professional.
Next, fairness. This one often touches on how you interact with others and manage professional relationships, isn't it? Equity, impartiality.
That's right. Fairness means respecting others, actively avoiding conflicts of interest, and proactively disclosing any potential conflicts you might have that could influence your work or judgment.
Proactively disclosing. That's key.
It is. This ensures impartiality, equitable treatment for all involved parties, clients, colleagues, users, and it maintains the integrity of your professional relationships. You consciously avoid situations where your personal interests, or maybe those of a preferred party, could inappropriately sway your professional judgment or bias your communication. It's about ensuring a level playing field for information access and understanding.
And finally, the sixth principle, professionalism. This seems to encompass a lot about continuous growth, engagement, setting a high bar for the entire field.
It does. Professionalism involves providing and actively seeking constructive feedback for self-improvement, and actively engaging with the broader technical communication community.
Learning, growing.
Exactly. It's about continuous learning, staying current with best practices and technologies, rigorous self-assessment, and contributing positively to the field, thereby helping to elevate standards for everyone. These 6 principles, taken together, form a really powerful ethical compass. They help technical communicators navigate the complexities of their role with integrity and responsibility. They're not just a list, they're an integrated philosophy.
What's fascinating here is how these principles guide not just what you say, but how you say it, including how you structure your language and, crucially, how you use visuals. Because visuals, just like words, can be manipulated, right? Which leads us perfectly into avoiding distorted or misleading information.
Absolutely. Ethics in technical communication extends far beyond just the text. Visuals, images, graphs, charts, diagrams, they can be manipulated just as easily, if not more so.
Or so, why?
Often with a more powerful, immediate, almost subconscious impact that text might not achieve quite as quickly. We process visuals very fast.
That's so true. I mean, we've all seen those graphs in presentations or reports that just feel off, but you can't quite put your finger on why. Our source gives a truly egregious example, the Alpacas of Doom video game graph. Tell us about that one, because it sounds almost cartoonishly deceptive.
It's a perfect, albeit maybe blatant, illustration of visual misrepresentation. The graph was supposedly intended to show a reduction in alpaca attacks within the game after a new patch was released.
Okay, fewer attacks. Makes sense.
But the designers made a truly deceptive choice. They inverted the vertical axis.
Inverted. How?
So instead of starting from 0 at the bottom and going up, it started from, say, 300 at the bottom and went down to 0 at the top.
Whoa.
So what looked like a declining line, visually indicating fewer attacks to most people, actually represented a dramatic increase in attacks because the numbers were counting up from 0 in the way we normally read graphs, not down from 300.
That's sneaky.
It took advantage of the user's inherent expectation of how a graph usually works to completely reverse the meaning of the data. It achieved the exact opposite of what a truthful representation would show.
That's incredibly deceptive. It relies on a visual trick to convey the opposite of what the data truly shows, preying on our natural inclination to interpret graphs in a certain way. And there are other, maybe more subtle ways charts can mislead too.
Oh, many.
Our source shows a bar chart about students passing WR227 with 3 professors, A, B, and C. How can that seemingly simple chart be misleading?
Well, without additional crucial context, that bar chart can easily mislead viewers. Professor A might appear significantly inferior compared to Professor C in terms of the sheer number of students passing.
Yeah, the bar is lower.
Right. But the chart doesn't tell us the total number of students each professor taught or their overall teaching load, or the specific level of a class, maybe it was remedial versus advanced, or even the time period the data covers.
Okay, context is missing.
Exactly. Professor A might actually be a much more effective teacher, but perhaps they teach larger classes, or their course is a particularly challenging prerequisite. Maybe they're full-time faculty with lots of other duties, while Professor C is part-time with one small, specialized class. The chart, by presenting these isolated data points without context, creates an unfair comparison and leads to potentially false conclusions about teaching effectiveness. It's a classic example of data presented without sufficient context.
That's a great point about missing context. It's not just about what's in the chart, but what's missing. And then our source also calls out 3-dimensional pie charts. You see these everywhere in presentations, people trying to look sleek or modern.
Yes, and they're notorious for distorting proportions even when the underlying data is accurate.
How?
In the example provided in the source, a segment labeled D might appear visually larger or maybe smaller than segment B, simply due to the 3D perspective and the angle it's viewed from, even though its actual percentage share might be smaller.
Ah, the perspective trick.
Right. This highlights how a desire for a sleek or modern design can directly obscure clear, accurate data. It prevents the user from correctly interpreting the information. What looks good on a slide can be incredibly misleading in practice. The visual appeal triumphs over data integrity.
So, whether it's an inverted axis, missing context, or a visually distorting design choice, the bottom line is clear. Misrepresenting information, visually or textually, is never a joke. It always has consequences.
Indeed, it can lead to serious consequences. Faulty decision-making on the part of the audience, whether they're students, customers, policymakers, even potential litigation against the communicators or the company.
Yeah.
It undermines trust, harms reputation, and can cause very tangible damage. And beyond visuals, language itself can be a powerful tool for ethical communication, or just as effectively for unethical distortion.
Okay, let's talk about those language traps then. The first one mentioned is ambiguity. What does that look like in practice, and how can it be used unethically?
Ambiguity occurs when a word or phrase or even a whole sentence presents multiple meanings at once, which leads to confusion.
Right.
Now, it can be unintentional, a professional error, maybe due to rushing or just not reviewing carefully enough, but it still absolutely needs correction to ensure clarity. However, when ambiguity or obfuscation is intentional, that's when it becomes deeply unethical, because the communicator is deliberately trying to mislead or hide information, or maybe create plausible deniability for the audience.
Give us an example that really illustrates that unintentional versus intentional ambiguity.
Okay, consider the sentence. An employee has filed at least one complaint about a supervisor every month for the past year.
Okay, sounds specific, but
It sounds specific, but it's inherently ambiguous. Is it one specific employee filing multiple complaints about one supervisor? Or are multiple employees filing complaints about one supervisor? Or are multiple employees filing complaints about multiple supervisors?
oh yeah, lots of possibilities.
Exactly. The source gives another example. Michael Herrera has filed at least one complaint about his supervisor, Dana Sampson, every month for the past year. Even with names, the ambiguity persists. Is Herrera the only employee making complaints, or are others doing so too?
Right, doesn't say.
Depending on the context, the meaning can drastically change the severity and implications of the situation. It makes it impossible for the reader to understand the true picture without more clarification. Ethical communication always leads with the important information and provides those clarifying details. It leaves no room for multiple interpretations. When you intentionally leave that room, that's a problem.
That's fascinating how a seemingly simple sentence can hide so much complexity and potential deception. Next, we have euphemism. These are words or phrases that soften the impact of reality, often used for taboo subjects or difficult concepts. When are they acceptable and when do they become unethical?
Right. Euphemisms are words or phrases that replace others to make a concept less harsh, less confrontational.
Hmm.
They can be used politely in social interactions, to show deference or sensitivity. Like saying passed away instead of died, or maybe downsizing instead of firing, this is generally acceptable, can even be a sign of social grace.
Good.
However, they become unethical when bad actors use them to intentionally hide reality, or create legal interpretive space, or avoid responsibility, or obscure truly horrific acts. The intent is absolutely key here.
And our source gives some chilling examples of that unethical use where euphemisms aren't just softening language, but actively concealing truth.
Indeed, chilling is the right word. Think of phrases like enhanced interrogation techniques,
Right.
which is a euphemism for torture, or collateral damage,
Or do they want a lot?
which euphemizes civilian death or injury during military operations, or even ethnic cleansing, a euphemism for genocide. These are not merely softened terms. They are designed to mask horrific realities, to sanitize actions, to distance the perpetrators from the true impact of their deeds. They are attempts to make the unspeakable speakable, but in a way that kind of numbs the listener to the true horror.
And corporations use them too, right? Often to obscure difficult financial or personnel decisions, hiding the human cost behind corporate jargon. The General Motors example is a prime one that many people probably remember.
Yes, absolutely. In 2018, GM stated that market conditions require that 5 North American assembly and propulsion plants will be unallocated product by the end of 2019.
Unallocated product, what does that even mean?
Exactly. As Professor Bruce Berry from Vanderbilt University points out, this confusing language was a euphemism used specifically to avoid saying shut down or close.
Ah,
This allowed GM to avoid immediately confronting the reality of firing thousands of employees and the significant cost savings on severance packages. It effectively hid the difficult truth from their workforce and the public. It's a classic example of corporate euphemism used to sanitize an unpleasant, impactful truth and evade direct accountability.
wow. That makes you really think about the language you encounter every day, from news reports to corporate statements. And related to hiding truth, but maybe through an excess of language, we have circumlocution. This isn't just being wordy, is it? It sounds worse.
It's far more than just being wordy, yes. Circumlocution is the deliberate act of burying the message in an overabundance of words, making the content excessively detailed, convoluted, extremely difficult to understand.
Why would someone do that?
Well, the underlying goal, often, is to obscure the actual subject, or maybe to make the communicator appear knowledgeable and authoritative, or simply to tire the reader out, make them give up before they reach the actual point.
The exhaustion tactic.
Right. Politicians are famously adept at this, using excessive detail and flowery language to avoid committing to a clear stance or to distract their audience from the actual, perhaps uncomfortable, point they are trying to make.
Our source provides a fantastic, illustrative example of circumlocution from Douglas Walton. It's a paragraph that just goes on and on about citizens' entitlement to education and endowments. Can you break down that original example, show us why it's problematic, and then contrast it with how clarity can truly transform it?
Of course. The original sentence from Walton reads, I firmly believe that every citizen is entitled to the best possible education. In fact, it is my unalterable conviction that it is the solemn obligation of each generation to endow its youth with the knowledge of the noble achievements of the human species, and to make these endowments equally without regard to race, creed, sex, color, or region. I also hold that the burden of providing these rights and privileges should be equitably allotted among those most capable of assuming the burden.
Wow, that's not just a mouthful. It feels like navigating a dense fog. It uses grand, sweeping language, but seems to delay getting to any clear, concise point. It sounds important, but it's really hard to grasp what they're actually saying.
Exactly. It's designed to sound profound, maybe intellectually rigorous, but it ultimately exhausts the reader without conveying a direct, actionable message. It's the linguistic equivalent of running in circles. Now, compare that to a clearer, more concise version suggested in the source. Like,
Yeah.
I believe every citizen is equally entitled to the same high-quality education. It's the responsibility of the present generation to provide this education to the future generations, and we should pay a percentage of tax dollars into education according to our overall wealth.
Much clearer.
Or, even more succinctly, maybe for a different context, Everyone gets the same quality education, and wealthier people put more money into the fund that makes equal education possible.
Right, didn't they?
See how removing those unnecessary words, those distracting phrases and convoluted structures makes the message far more impactful, more digestible, more understandable. Ethical communication prioritizes the reader's understanding above all else, not the writer's grandiloquence.
The difference is absolutely night and day. It really shows how ethical communication isn't just about what you say, but how clearly and efficiently you say it. Which ties nicely into the next category of language traps: exclusive language, idioms, and jargon. Let's start with exclusive language. What makes language exclusive, and why is it an ethical concern?
Exclusive language refers to language or visuals that often unintentionally discriminate or alienate people based on culture, gender, age, disability, visual impairment, things like that.
Unintentionally, often.
Often, yes. It's frequently subtle, deeply ingrained based on unconscious assumptions we all carry. For example, consistently using fireman instead of the gender-neutral firefighter might seem minor to some, but it implicitly assumes a male gender for a profession, which can alienate or disrespect women in that field, or maybe girls considering it as a career.
So it's really about being acutely aware of your diverse audience and their varied backgrounds, ensuring everyone feels included and respected.
Precisely. Technical communicators have to meticulously review content for cultural background, unconscious biases, unintentional ignorance. For instance, women represent, 51% of the U.S. population? So language and visuals shouldn't make assumptions about gender or ethnicity or other demographics that might alienate a significant portion of your audience.
Right.
This also extends to potentially offensive references, certain gestures, symbols, even color choices that are perfectly fine or positive in one culture, but highly offensive or negative in another. Ethical communication demands empathy and a global perspective.
That's a critical point for our increasingly globalized world. Okay, next, idioms. These are phrases like learn the ropes or break a leg. Why are they problematic in technical communication, even if they're common in everyday speech?
Well, idioms are phrases with specific cultural meanings that just don't translate literally. That makes them extremely confusing for anyone unfamiliar with that specific cultural context.
Like learn the ropes.
Right. It means to learn how to do a new job, but a non-native English speaker would likely be very confused by the literal words, picturing actual ropes, maybe.
Yeah, I could see that.
They also vary regionally. For example, in the U.S., you might knock on wood for good luck. In other English-speaking regions, you touch wood. Small difference, but adds to the confusion.
So the advice is,
In international technical communication, idioms should pretty much be avoided entirely for clarity, for precision, because they can cause significant confusion, delay understanding, or even lead to serious misinterpretation for global audiences. They're simply not precise enough for conveying critical, unambiguous information.
so a straightforward, literal explanation is always better than relying on a culturally specific, non-literal phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. And finally, jargon. This is specialized language used within a particular field. When is it okay, and when does it become an ethical problem? Because it seems like a double-edged sword.
It absolutely is a double-edged sword. Jargon can be perfectly appropriate, even highly efficient, when the audience is comprised exclusively of experts within the same field.
Okay.
For example, two surgeons discussing a complex medical procedure would use specific medical terms jargon to impart information quickly and precisely because they share that common, deep understanding.
Right, they know the lingo.
Exactly. However, jargon becomes problematic and ethically questionable when the audience is unfamiliar with it. If jargon is intentionally used to halt understanding, maybe to hide information, or perhaps to make the communicator appear superior and more knowledgeable, that's when it crosses the line into unethical obfuscation.
So if I'm a technical writer explaining a complex software system to other developers, using developer-specific jargon is probably fine, because we're all on the same page.
Probably, yes,
Yeah.
assuming a shared baseline knowledge.
But if I'm explaining that same system to end users who are not developers, and I don't define the terms or use simpler language,
Yeah.
that's where it becomes unethical.
Exactly. Now, unintentional jargon is often a professional error. Maybe due to rushing, a lack of audience awareness, not adequately reviewing content from the user's perspective. It's a failure of effective communication, but perhaps not deliberately unethical.
Okay.
However, when jargon is intentionally used to mislead, confuse, or prevent an audience from fully understanding critical information, that's an ethical lapse. The outcome in either case is a lack of clarity, But the intent behind the use of jargon elevates it to an ethical issue when it's deliberate. It's about intentionally creating barriers to understanding.
This entire section has really highlighted how easily information can be distorted, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly, and often with significant consequences. But it also means that as communicators, we have a profound responsibility to use information ethically, and that includes understanding where that information comes from in the first place.
Indeed. And part of that profound responsibility involves understanding and correctly applying principles around how we use existing information created by others. Two major concerns for anyone who uses material they didn't create themselves are copyright and citations. These are not just, legal technicalities. They are ethical imperatives for respecting intellectual property and building trust.
Let's start with copyright basics.
Yeah.
What is it, fundamentally, and what do we absolutely need to know about it as communicators?
Okay, copyright. It's basically a legal protection granted to the creators of original works. It gives them exclusive rights to control how their work is used, copied, distributed, etc., for a certain period.
Exclusive rights.
Yes. This means that to use copyrighted material, whether it's text, images, designs, software code, music, whatever you generally need to obtain explicit permission from the owner.
Okay.
The familiar copyright symbol, often followed by the year and the owner's name, like on our source, Practical Models for Technical Communication, copyrighted by Tamikata Press, 2021 identifies who holds these rights. And it's crucial to understand that in a professional setting, unlike some academic fair use allowances, which have different, often more lenient rules for educational purposes.
Right, that distinction again.
In a professional context, you almost always need specific permission or a license to use copyrighted content. Assuming you can just use it freely is a potentially very costly mistake.
So fair use in my university paper isn't the same as using copyrighted material in a corporate document or a product manual.
Got it.
That's a vital distinction. What about content that isn't copyrighted, or maybe where the copyright has expired?
Okay, that's where the public domain comes in. Content in the public domain does not require permission for use.
Oh.
This typically includes works where the copyright has expired, the length of time depends on the country, and the type of work or works that were explicitly placed in the public domain by their creators. A very common and relevant example for technical communicators is information provided by the U.S. government.
Government stuff.
Right. That's typically in the public domain and can be used freely without seeking permission, which is why you often see government reports and data widely republished and reused.
And then there's Creative Commons, CC licenses. These seem to offer a really valuable middle ground, like a flexible alternative between full, all rights reserved copyright and the completely open public domain.
That's absolutely right. Creative Commons is a nonprofit organization that provides free, easy-to-use legal tools. They allow content creators to choose exactly how their work can be used by others.
So more granular control.
Exactly. It's a flexible alternative to traditional all rights reserved copyright. It allows creators to grant specific permissions while still retaining certain rights. It's really designed to facilitate sharing and collaboration while giving creators control. There are 4 main types of Creative Commons licenses, and they can be combined in various ways to create different levels of permission.
Let's quickly go through those 4 types, because understanding them seems incredibly useful for navigating the digital landscape today.
Okay. First, we have BY, or attribution. This is the most basic and common license. It simply requires that users give explicit credit to the original owner, and usually provide a URL that links back to the original content. It's just about acknowledging the source and the creator, giving credit where it's due.
Simple enough. Next, SA, or share alike. This one sounds like it fosters a chain of openness, maybe.
It does. That's a good way to put it. Share alike means that any content you produce using the original work must also be licensed under an identical or compatible Creative Commons license.
So it pays it forward.
Exactly. It ensures that derivative works, things you create from the original, continue to be freely available under similar open terms. It perpetuates the spirit of sharing.
And then NC, for non-commercial. This seems pretty straightforward.
It generally is. Non-commercial explicitly forbids commercial profit from the content. If you use content with this license, you cannot use it for business purposes, to generate income, or to promote a product or service. This one is sometimes misunderstood, so it's vital to be clear on its implications before using NC material in a business context.
Good point. Finally, ND, or no derivatives.
No derivatives means exactly what it says. The original content must remain completely unchanged. You can use it, you can distribute it, but you cannot adapt it, remix it, transform it, or build upon the original material in any way. You must present it exactly as it was created. Understanding these licenses is crucial for ethical and legal information usage, both as a creator wanting to share and as a user wanting to incorporate existing work. They empower intelligent sharing.
That brings us to another foundational tool for responsible information usage, one that often feels very academic, but you're saying is deeply practical in professional life. The power of proper citations. Why is citing so important? Beyond just, avoiding plagiarism, what's the real power of it for the user?
That's a fantastic question because it shifts the focus from avoiding a negative plagiarism to embracing a positive value. Citations are an academic and more broadly an ethical convention. Their fundamental purpose is to give credit to original sources, to acknowledge the intellectual work of others. It is, as you said, the cornerstone of avoiding plagiarism. But beyond that, citing serves several critical purposes that genuinely empower the user.
Okay, what are those key reasons why we should cite? Because, let's be honest, it can feel like a chore sometimes.
It can feel that way, absolutely. But think of it this way. First, citations ensure the accuracy and precision of the information you provide. They allow your audience to actually verify your data, check your facts, scrutinize your conclusions against the original research.
Okay, verification.
Second, they build audience trust and credibility. When you cite your sources, you allow your audience to see the foundation of your arguments and conclusions. It makes your work more reliable, more authoritative, more verifiable.
Builds confidence?
Third, it demonstrates professional standards. It shows integrity, meticulous record keeping, adherence to established professional norms within your field. It speaks volumes about your diligence as a communicator.
Right.
Fourth, and this is very important, citations empower the user. They provide a direct pathway, a shortcut for your audience to quickly find and review the original research if they want a deeper dive, if they wish to explore the topic further themselves, or maybe even challenge your interpretation. It's a genuine service to the reader, enhancing their ability to learn and make truly informed decisions.
So it's not just about covering your bases legally or ethically, but actively enhancing the user's experience and building profound trust. That makes perfect sense. And what exactly should we be citing? Is it just direct quotes from a book?
No, it's far more comprehensive than that. You should cite everything that isn't your own original research, or maybe a very well-known common fact, or clearly identified public domain material. This includes direct quotes, yes, but also paraphrased material. Even if you put it in your own words, the idea originated elsewhere, so you cite it. Specific data points, findings from fieldwork, statistical analyses, even meta-analyses or summaries of other research. Basically, if you didn't originate it, cite it. When in doubt, cite.
Okay, when in doubt, cite. Good rule of thumb. And how do we cite? I know there are different styles out there and it can feel like a maze. How do you pick the right one?
You're absolutely right. Citation styles vary widely. By field, by discipline, even by specific publication or company guidelines. In an academic setting, you'll learn styles specific to your discipline. In professional settings, companies or industries often have their own preferred styles documented in their internal style guides.
So check the style guide first.
Always check first. Our source highlights some major styles you're likely to encounter. The key takeaway is that you'll need to know which style your field or project requires, and then consistently use reliable online resources like the Purdue OWL, University Writing Centers, for precise guidance on the formatting. Consistency is key.
Let's run through them quickly. First, MLA.
MLA, Modern Language Association, primarily used for literature, languages, the humanities. It typically uses an author page number in text citation style, and is generally not widely used in professional or scientific settings. It's largely a scholarly format focused on literary analysis.
Okay. Then there's APA. This one seems much more prevalent in corporate and scientific contexts.
It is, very much so.
Yeah.
APA, American Psychological Association. Crucial for behavioral and social sciences, psychology, sociology, nursing, and increasingly used in many business and scientific reports. It uses an author date citation style.
Author date. Why is that important?
It's vital in fields where the publication date of research is highly significant, as it immediately indicates how current the information is. This style prioritizes currency.
And CMS Turabian. I often see this one in longer form publications like books.
Right. The Chicago Manual of Style, often with its student version called Turabian, is widely used in publishing, history, fine arts, and some business fields too. It's known for its flexibility. It allows for either an author date style or a more detailed footnote bibliography system. That footnote system is common in books and historical research where deep source documentation is required.
Makes sense. Finally, IEE. This one has a distinct look with those bracketed numbers.
Yes, IEE, the Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers. They set standards for electrical engineering, electronics, computer science, and related tech fields. It uses a numerical bracketed citation system. 1, 2, like that.
Ah, like Wikipedia often does.
Exactly. You often see it on platforms like Wikipedia, where sources are referenced by numbers in the text that correspond to a numbered list in the bibliography or references section. Each of these styles serves a specific purpose for its respective community. You just need to know which one applies to your situation.
That's a great overview of the practical side of responsible information usage. It makes the chore of citing feel much more purposeful, actually. Now, let's try to put it all together with a comprehensive case study. Our source gives us the Julia case study. She's a freelance technical communicator navigating various professional demands and environments. This seems like where we can truly see all these STC principles in action.
Yes, Julia's scenario is excellent for understanding how these principles aren't just theoretical constructs on a page, but practical guides for navigating real-world complexity. The goal is to see how the 6 STC principles, legality, honesty, confidentiality, quality, fairness, and professionalism play out in her day-to-day work, sometimes subtly, sometimes with stark clarity.
So let's start with legality. Julia have a contract job requiring original work for pamphlets for a new client. What does legality demand of her here, specifically?
Okay, in this situation, Julia must not use copyrighted material, whether it's text, images, maybe even design elements, without explicit permission from the copyright holder. Her contract specifically requires original work.
All right, the contract is key.
Absolutely. That makes strict adherence to intellectual property laws paramount. If she were to, say, just lift a paragraph from a website or use a stock photo without the proper license, she'd not only be violating her contract, but also exposing herself and potentially her client to legal action. It's a clear legal obligation and really a foundation of ethical practice.
How about honesty? Julia needs to create informational pamphlets for high school students about the emerging field of robotics, a topic where misinformation could really impact kids' career choices.
Right. So, to uphold honesty, Julia researches robotics thoroughly. She consults multiple credible sources to ensure the information she provides is accurate, current, balanced. She avoids presenting speculative stuff as fact, or maybe exaggerating opportunities. When she estimates project costs, for example, the source mentions she might quote $330 for 6 initial hours, plus maybe 3 to 5 revision hours for a designer at $75 an hour. She demonstrates fair and transparent pricing, provides a detailed breakdown of her time, expected expenses.
Transparent.
Exactly. She also meticulously seeks permission for any photos or diagrams she uses, and provides clear documentation of her research process and sources. It's about truthfulness in both the content and her professional conduct.
And confidentiality.
Yeah.
Julia contracts with medical companies, and she researches sensitive topics like drug reactions. This sounds like a potential minefield for privacy issues.
It's an incredibly critical area, yes. Julia knows that due to HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996 in the U.S., she cannot and must not share any confidential patient information she might overhear or encounter during conversations with doctors or medical staff.
Zero tolerance there.
Absolutely zero. This is a clear ethical and legal boundary protecting private health data. Even a casual mention of a patient's condition without explicit written consent would be a severe breach. She adheres to strict non-disclosure agreements with her clients, understanding that trust is paramount in the medical field.
Okay. For quality, Julia is estimating costs for promotional materials for a local gym. What does quality entail in this scenario, beyond just, good graphic design?
Well, Julia provides a detailed and realistic cost estimate for the gym's promotional materials again. Maybe that $330 for 6 hours initial work and 3 to 5 revision hours, based on a fair rate for experienced designers in her area. This demonstrates not only fair pricing, but also her commitment to excellence in her work.
How so?
By ensuring the materials are clear, engaging, accurate, and ultimately effective for the gym's target audience. She documents her work process, she shows drafts, she invites feedback, all of which reflect a high standard of quality. She's not just delivering a product, she's delivering a high-quality professional solution tailored to their needs.
Makes sense. The fifth principle, fairness. Julia is approached by a business that supports youth education, offering her extra money for a project. But here's the twist. She also volunteers extensively for that very same organization. This sounds like a classic conflict of interest brewing.
It does. And here, Julia demonstrates remarkable integrity. She politely declines the paid work.
Declines it,
Yeah.
even though it's extra money.
Yes. She explicitly cites a clear conflict of interest because of her significant volunteer involvement with the organization. Taking money from an organization she already serves as a volunteer, where she might have inside knowledge or even influence, could create the perception of unfair advantage or bias, even if her intentions were perfectly pure.
Right. The perception matters.
Exactly. This ensures impartiality and prevents any perception of unfairness or undue influence. She prioritizes ethical conduct and the appearance of fairness over potential financial gain, safeguarding both her reputation and the organization's integrity.
And finally, professionalism. How does Julia exemplify this broader principle in her daily work as a freelancer?
Julia proactively makes sure to get early drafts and consistent feedback from her employers and clients throughout the project lifecycle. She recognizes that this collaborative approach doesn't just lead to a better final product, but it also saves everyone time and money in the long run by catching issues early.
hmm Efficiency through collaboration.
Right. This active engagement in the communication process, seeking continuous improvement and efficiency, exemplifies her commitment to continuous learning and professional development within the technical communication community. She's not just a service provider, she's acting like a partner in the process.
The Julia case study really solidifies how these principles aren't just abstract ideas you discuss in the classroom. They're practical, actionable guides for navigating everyday professional challenges. And it makes you think. How would you explain each of these principles in your field, specific to your work environment? How would you adapt them to your specific projects and the unique pressures you face?
Those are excellent questions for our listeners to consider. It really moves the concepts from theory to direct personal application, forces you to internalize them. And to help our listeners put all of this into practice immediately, our source also provides a very practical, actionable tool, an ethical communication checklist. This is something you can literally print out or just keep in mind and use for your next email, report, presentation, whatever.
This checklist sounds like such a valuable takeaway. It acts as a concise summary of key considerations for ensuring ethical communication in any project. Let's break it down into its core components. First, regarding citations. What should we be asking ourselves there?
Okay, for citations, the checklist prompts you to ask, have you acknowledged all collaborators, team members, contributors to the project or document? Have you meticulously used the required citation style for your field, organization, or specific project? And most importantly, are your sources clearly and accurately cited, allowing others to easily find, verify, and understand the foundation of your information? This demonstrates that intellectual honesty and transparency we talked about.
Got it. Next, for equitable language. This goes back to avoiding those pitfalls we discussed earlier, the exclusive language, ambiguity.
Absolutely. With equitable language, you need to check. Did you consciously avoid exclusive and offensive language, imagery, or cultural references that could alienate or disrespect any part of your diverse audience? Does your text adhere to plain language rules, making it as accessible and understandable as possible for your intended audience, regardless of their background or expertise? And, critically, what specific checkpoints did you use in your review process to locate and proactively change any ambiguous words or phrases that could lead to misunderstanding? It's about proactive inclusivity and clarity.
And then, the visual detail section of the checklist. We talked about how easily visuals can mislead, so this is crucial.
Definitely. For visuals, you should ask yourself these questions. Have you used the most suitable type of visual, a pie chart, a table, a line graph, a diagram for the specific information you're presenting? Does it accurately convey the data without distortion? Did you give proper credit to your sources for all visuals and cite them appropriately, just as you would text? And did you clearly explain to the user what information to take away or how to interpret the visual, ensuring they draw the correct conclusions? This ensures your visuals don't subtly mislead, like that alpaca attacks graph we discussed.
This checklist is a powerful tool. It really helps ensure that your communication is not just technically sound, but clear, precise, accurate, and honest every single time. It's a fantastic way to put all these principles into immediate daily action.
It truly is. Ethical communication isn't really about avoiding mistakes entirely because, frankly, that's probably an impossible standard for anyone.
Right, we're human.
Exactly. It's about having a systematic approach, a robust framework like the STC principles, and practical tools like this checklist to minimize errors, catch potential ethical lapses early, and consistently maximize clarity and integrity in your communication. It's a continuous process of refinement, really.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into technical communication ethics, the core message seems pretty clear. Whether you're a recent graduate like Kamal facing intense pressure to perform, or an experienced freelancer like Julia, navigating complex client demands, you will inevitably face ethical dilemmas in your communication work. It's just part of the job.
Mm-hmm. Guaranteed.
And the choices you make in creating and delivering information have profound, far-reaching consequences.
Indeed. It's not about being perfect, but about having the principles and tools to navigate these challenges with integrity and hopefully a clear conscience. You've seen the importance of understanding what ethics truly means in this field, how your choices impact yourself, others, the world, and the myriad perils of distorted information, whether it's visual or linguistic. The STC principles and the practical guidance on things like copyright and citations provide a really robust, actionable framework for ethical decision-making when things get tough.
And recognize that the temporary, maybe fleeting advantages of taking shortcuts, like plagiarizing, or obfuscating information with jargon, or distorting visuals, they are never, ever worth the long-term damage.
Yeah.
Damage to your reputation, your professional relationships, or, most importantly, the potential harm to your audience.
Well said.
Ethical considerations shouldn't be an afterthought, something you tack on at the end. They should be an integral, foundational part of every single step of your work, right from initial planning all the way to final delivery.
Ultimately, being an ethical communicator isn't just about avoiding legal trouble or maintaining a clean reputation, though those are important. It's about truly serving the needs of your clients and users above your own convenience or the pressures of the moment, or even your desire to present things in an overly favorable light. It requires a professional frame of mind where your relationship with clients and users is founded on an unwavering commitment to trust. And you honor that trust by preparing your communication as clearly, precisely, accurately, and honestly as you possibly can.
In a world that sometimes feels like it's just drowning in information, good information, bad information, truthful, manipulative.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
It is. Your ability to communicate ethically isn't just a professional skill anymore. It's maybe a profound act of service. It empowers those who depend on your information. It allows them to make truly informed decisions, to navigate complex situations safely, and to trust the guidance you provide.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you go about your week, we encourage you, take that ethical communication checklist we discussed, apply it. Maybe just to your next email, your next report, your next presentation, or even your next social media post. See what shifts. See how focusing on clarity, precision, accuracy, and honesty can transform your impact. How will you use your words and visuals to build trust and genuinely empower those who depend on your information?